On Wednesday morning, like clockwork, Arkady intended to sleep in, at least until the early afternoon. And who could blame him? He'd spent the previous night at a sports bar, hanging out with his pals, passionately cheering for his beloved soccer team. Unfortunately, their resounding defeat sent Arkady spiraling into a funk, one he attempted to drown with noble and very pricey libations without leaving his seat at the bar. By the wee hours, our hero had a hazy recollection of his buddy, Vitalik, half dragging him back home to his devoted wife. Oksana was a gem, a truly treasured gift for any man. Deeply infatuated with her other half, she allowed him freedoms that his friends could only dream of. They conversely seemed shackled to partners who were more like harpies than spouses. Take Vitalik, for instance. With his distinguished look, despite a slight beer gut, he held a job as a security guard at a kindergarten and had been married for a decade. Despite being a decent chap, his wife relentlessly nagged him, even during his hard-earned post-work relaxation, constantly interrupting him from catching the latest soccer match. Talk about a nag. Now, if Arkady had to face such interference from his Oksana, he would have firmly reminded her of her role in maintaining peace at home. Fortunately, Oksana was wise and adept at preserving harmony in their household, ensuring a tranquil domestic life. This morning, just before she dashed off to the hospital where she faithfully served as a nurse, the young woman tiptoed into the bedroom with a tray brimming with treats she'd meticulously prepared for her husband the night before, hoping he hadn't returned too late. Gently nudging his shoulder, she murmured, "Sweetheart, time to rise. I've brought you some refreshments. You must be worn out from yesterday, but I need a quick chat before I head out," she said warmly, caressing Arkady's lower back with a soft hand. At her soothing touch, he stirred awake instantly. He treasured such gentle moments, yet felt the need to maintain a stoic facade. So with a scowl, Arkady gruffly snapped, "Are you kidding me? Why are you waking me up? Don't you know I have a busy day ahead, hunting for a worthy job? I trudged through the city yesterday, visiting countless firms, but none suited a man of my caliber. You know, talent like mine isn't commonplace, and I refuse to sell myself short," he declared sternly. "Forgive me, love, I do understand, and I'm not hurrying you. Remember, I'm pulling overtime. We're not exactly strapped for cash. There's money on the dresser for you to use if necessary. Moreover, it's only been a year since you've been out of the workforce. Hardly an eternity, my dear. But that's not the reason I woke you. Your mother needs your help." A group of hogs is soon to arrive at the farm, and her worker, as is typical post-payday, is hardly fit for duty, so she's unable to handle it all by herself. This revelation even caused a sturdy man to trip over his words. Generally speaking, his mother-in-law, the 58-year-old Valentina Danilovna, was someone Arkady had only met once, and that was at his own nuptials. The crux of the matter was that she had spent many years overseas, wedded to a certain French agriculturist. Nevertheless, it seemed her longing for her roots had grown too potent, and the lady abandoned her monsieur, returning to her homeland to purchase a swinery nearby and embark on her entrepreneurial journey. The mere thought of toiling in the muck with his pristine hands made Arkady shiver in horror, prompting him to voice his displeasure to his spouse. Yet he found himself unable to deny his mother-in-law's singular appeal after years of their marriage. Enhanced further as Oksana sweetened her request with a gentle kiss and hinted at further rewards upon his valiant return, before she dashed off to work. With these thoughts swirling, Arkady hastened through his morning meal and dressed swiftly, aware that the journey was long and the bus from the terminal departed with punctual precision. Bundled up against the chill, he stepped outside into the enchanting world of snow and the festive spirit of New Year's Eve. The city sparkled with an array of colorful lights, and in the square, a magnificent fir stood tall. "And now you're hauling pigs," grumbled the man, chuckling at the sheer ridiculousness of it all. Upon reaching the station and boarding the correct bus, Arkasha nestled into one of the plush seats, quickly drifting off to sleep. His slumber was interrupted by a gentle touch on his cheek and a voice saying, "Wake up, son-in-law, you've really done it this time, missing your stop. Good thing I kept an eye out, or you'd have ended up all the way in Moscow." Groggily opening his eyes, Arkady saw his concerned mother-in-law standing over him, her down jacket open, revealing a rather respectable cleavage. The scene stirred vague memories from his youth, something he felt had happened before, but the specifics eluded him. "Hi, Mom," he managed to murmur, following her down the bus's narrow aisle. As he was leaving, an impressed driver approached him, pointing at the enormous pickup truck blocking his path. "She's a real firecracker. She stopped me so abruptly, I nearly ended up in the ditch." As they drove away, Valentina Danilovna, his mother-in-law, informed him that she had been waiting for him at the bus stop as agreed. However, all she saw was a speedy intercity bus whizzing by, prompting her to chase after it immediately. When they arrived at the splendid cottage, the mother-in-law wasted no time in offering her son-in-law a feast fit for a king. The table was laden with food, with a succulent roasted piglet proudly taking center stage. Also on display was a carafe filled with her own homemade grape beverage, which they graciously indulged in. After a satisfying meal, the well-fed son-in-law was ushered into the living room to rest on a plush sofa. Meanwhile, the mother-in-law hurried to the yard, eagerly anticipating the arrival of a car carrying a litter of piglets. Arkady, with nothing else to do, turned his attention to an album of old photographs sitting on the coffee table in front of him. To his astonishment, he stumbled upon a picture of himself from a bygone era, when he was still a scruffy high school student. Standing beside him were his fellow classmates, and among them was their youthful history teacher, who had graduated from the local university not long ago. Even in the black and white photo, her cheeks were ablaze with a vibrant blush that couldn't be concealed. And all because recently, the teacher had received a very candid message from the primary troublemaker in the class. Arkasha was instantly infatuated with her alluring figure, accentuated by a snug skirt and a pristine blouse. However, their connection was brief, merely a few love notes that left the teacher blushing like a scarlet rose. Back then, one could only imagine the possible consequences of such infatuation. Our hero's heart would race, as his youthful love seemed to have no outlet, perhaps prompting him to recognize the sensual curves of his mother-in-law. Yet he didn't dwell on the forbidden fruit for long. Valentina Danilovna burst into the room, exclaiming, "My son-in-law is here. 100 grand. Hurry up, the driver is in a hurry." Arkasha responded, snatching a pen from the table and hastily scribbling a brief message. Why he did it, he couldn't quite fathom, perhaps merely as a precaution. They feverishly transported the piglets to the sty, as if possessed by some crazed frenzy. Valentina Danilovna, drawing from her foreign agricultural expertise, effortlessly carried 2 piglets at once, while they kicked and squealed with all their might. Finally, they relocated and released the last piglet into its pen. The car departed, leaving the mother-in-law and son-in-law collapsed on a haystack in the corner of the pigsty. They gazed upon the shimmering Christmas tree across the cozy room, as even the pigs were granted a festive atmosphere by the benevolent woman. Observing the robust farmer, her son-in-law found himself unable to resist the urge to pass his former mentor another message. Initially perplexed by the piece of paper bestowed upon her, the woman's countenance blossomed even more upon reading the affectionate words directed towards her. Thus, the shackles of moral prohibition were cast aside, allowing her to openly acknowledge her deep love for her pupil. In this altered era, she was no longer a mere mentor to Arkasha, but his mother-in-law, a role in which anything was possible. Without hesitation, the woman drew her son-in-law near, their lips intertwining in a fiery kiss. Only the pigs and the Christmas tree bore witness to this enchanting tale of the new year, one that is destined to continue, for the mother-in-law's assistance to the young couple knows no bounds.